nonprofit that operates the Buskirk-Chumley Theater. And I am one small part of Arts Forward Bloomington, which is a new local collective of arts advocates. And involvement in Arts Forward Bloomington, I want to make sure everyone knows, is free and open to the public. We are literally a group of people who want to get together and solve problems and take advantage of opportunities that present themselves to the arts. So if you are one of those people who likes to get things done, we want your involvement. Our plan is to get together 4 times a year, have a guided discussion about some issue or opportunity that is present in the community, determine something that should get done about that, and form a task force and do it. So if you want to do that, please sign up on the sign-up sheet at the door. I want to remind everyone as well that Katz is filming tonight's performance, if we want to call it that. Sock Puppets is for the late show. And the order of our candidates' speeches here this evening has been randomized, right? So we pick them out of a hat to develop the order in which they are speaking. But tonight's event is an attempt to offer an opportunity for us to get to know our city council members and our city officials better, and for those who are still in the running for a contested seat, for you to have an opportunity to hear differences of opinion that might exist. I have prepared as a beginning for tonight's show. I keep anyway. You'll forgive me. A document that you found on the table as you walked in that attempts to summarize and put together all in one place what the city's expenditures for the arts and programs around the arts as they currently exist. Now, I'm sure that there are elements of funding from the city side of things that aren't present in this number, staff time, etc. But this is a beginning place, and I thought a very important point for us to start off on. So just to briefly go through that, the city's investment in the arts stems from the idea that support of the arts is one of many strategies that are utilized by the city to help create Bloomington as one of the nation's best places to live, best places to raise a family, and a best place to start, build, and relocate a business. So the areas of funding fall into 5 basic categories: the Department of Economic and Sustainable Development, through the position of the Assistant Director for the Arts. Sean Starowitz is in here somewhere, and maintains that position in an excellent way. And that department deals with things like marketing the arts, public arts, research that benefits all of us, and advisement and assistance that benefit all of the arts groups in the community. The 2020 general fund budget request by that department is $200,960, and that does not include the 1% for the arts program, which is a whopping $330,300 in the coming year, because we have multiple building projects that are going on right now. There's the Bloomington the Bloomington Arts Commission, which offers annual grants. And for this past year and the coming year, there's a $40,000 request in the budget that is distributed in a maximum of $5,000 grants. There's the Bloomington Urban Enterprise Zone grants, which also has $40,000 in the budget and is distributed as a maximum of $4,000 grants. There's also then Bloomington Parks and Recreation's programming arm that includes things like a Fair of the Arts, the Holiday Market, Coffee and Canvas, as well as the other things that are listed here, and what we all might recognize most frequently, is the performing arts series that happens at Peoples Park, Bryan Park, Ernie Butler Park, and Waldron Hill Buskirk Park. Bands and other performances that happen there. And the general fund budget for that, which covers supplies and staff time, is $34,353. And then the sponsored artist programs, which are programmed by Parks and Rec, but actually paid for by businesses in the community and some individuals in the community who pay the artist fees for those events. And then there's the Buskirk Chumley Theater, which many of you know has over 200 public events a year. It represents 72 different presenting organizations on stage or screen, and another 20 that are helped through the BCT box office, about 3,500 artists served on stage and screen, and 64,000 annual patron visits. And the city support budget for the Buskirk Chumley Theater is $15,000 for maintenance of an $8.5 million building or so. Programming support from the city council budget of $55,000, which represents 5% of our total budget and about 25% of our contributed income. And potential annual support from TIF-eligible projects that would generate new capacity growth or development for the building. All this gathered together brings us to a total city expenditure proposed for the 2020 budget of $773,928. So as far as we knew, that type of number had not been compiled and put in any one place before. So this was one of the first steps of putting this project together. And like I say, any mistakes or inaccuracies that are represented here are purely my own. I did ask for help from Sean Starowitz and from Becky Barrick and the Parks and Recreation Department in putting together those numbers. But we may discover other things that were not included. So as a point of reference, we wanted to make sure that everyone realized that there are departments already in existence that are supporting and helping the arts on an ongoing basis. And city council and our other elected officials have only specific roles that they can play in supporting the arts. So we want to encourage everyone, if you did not pick up a question card when you walked in, to get one at this point, and you can write down questions, and we will ask the candidates during the Q&A section. We are going to have the candidates each speak for up to 5 minutes. And Kay Olgis, sitting right here in the front for the candidates, is going to be your timekeeper, and she will give you a nice little wave at 4 minutes to make sure that you don't go over. Okay. So in that case, given that scenario, we are going to start out with Matt Flaherty, who is running for, we'll say that for everyone, running for council at large. And Matt, I'll leave the mic to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Danielle, for helping to organize this with Arts Forward Bloomington. I didn't realize it was such a new organization as well, so that's awesome. A coalition of folks coming together to get things done. And thank you to everyone for being here tonight. I think this is a really important community conversation to have, so I'm glad it's part of this schedule that people running for office go through. By way of introduction, I'm 34 years old. I've lived in Bloomington for 10 years now. I'm a graduate of the Maurer School of Law. That's how I first came to Bloomington. I used to practice intellectual property law in Chicago, but didn't find private practice life the most fulfilling and wanted to head in a new direction. That brought me back to Bloomington and ultimately back to school at SPIA, now called O'Neill, where I study climate and energy policy. I'm finishing 2 master's degrees there this year, and had planned to join government or a nonprofit working, but then decided to run for council, so here I am. I will be joining the city council as one of the 3 at-large members come January by virtue of having won a primary election and then the fact that the at-large race is uncontested this fall. So I've been involved in the arts my whole life. I painted and drew all through grade school and high school, and got involved eventually in musical theater as well. Was involved heavily in high school and college, helped found a theater company in college, Even in law school, I joined the Law and Drama Society, which is the only student organization at Maurer, I believe, that has nothing to do with law and nothing to do with advancing your career. We just like to put on plays. So I got to act and got to direct a play, actually. It was my sole directorial experience. And then also just as a musician, I play piano and guitar and a few other things and still enjoy doing that. So less active as a participant in the arts and now more as a patron the older I get, and have really enjoyed the cultural and artistic scene here in Bloomington. It's part of what brought me back here after living in Chicago. And really enjoy all our local shows at venues around town, as well as the excellent opera, symphonic work, and theater that we have. I was a beneficiary of Cardinal Stage's very first Nest generation, which was super cool, and then helped pay that forward with my wife to the next generation of Nest generation, and that was great. Also went to my first Red Feather Bash this, or is that name right? This year, which is great. I say all this to convey that the arts are really important to me. They've been central to my life throughout my whole life, and I want to do whatever I can on City Council to help support the arts. I think the cultural and artistic scene we have in Bloomington is second to none for a community of this size. You talk to people all the time who retire to Bloomington simply for our arts. So I do want to address kind of directly the three questions that were posed to all of us candidates. And the first is, what should city government's role and responsibility be in supporting, both economically and otherwise, the arts and arts organizations? And I just sort of spoke to this, but I think it's plain that arts have a very positive social benefit. This is something that, left to just private markets and individuals, will be underprovided. There's an intangible and really strong economic value to the arts that we simply can't rely on private entities to provide. Danielle just spoke to all the free programming and concerts we have. Those are open to everybody. It enhances quality of life and civic life for everyone here in Bloomington. So I think it's really important not only for philanthropy to play a role, but also for public support to play a role in that. So certainly things like 1% for the arts, very supportive of that. I think it's great that we incorporate that into all of our projects that the city is involved in. And yeah, I just think it's really central to Bloomington's future vitality. It is our quality of place, and really as an economic development strategy, the arts are crucial. So very much a supporter. In my specific role on City Council, where would I be focusing my efforts to grow and or change the city's current arts support? And I had Sean's a friend of mine, and we've talked about this stuff a bit before, and then I had a really good conversation with Rachel Glago recently as well, who's on the Arts Commission. And we talked a bit about the grants program, which has recently doubled by council this year from 20,000 to 40,000 to kind of keep up with the times, which is great. Very supportive of that. Glad that they were able to now incorporate operating expenses as part of the grants program, which I think is really crucial. Nonprofits in particular, a lot of times are able to get grants or donations for projects, but not for operations. So it's really important to include that. It sounds like there's some really positive movement in that space with the grants committee, as well as I believe Sean in the city budget has tried to, or is planning to tack that to inflation. So it will automatically increase. We won't have to come back 5-10 years from now and say, hey, 40K doesn't go as far as it used to. So that's really great. I gathered talking to Rachel as well that another way the city can support, of course, is through public-private partnerships that have to do with venues and spaces. And that maybe we're lacking a sort of mid-sized space right now in the 300-ish seated range. And to the extent that we can pursue public-private partnerships to make that available to our whole arts community, I think that would be really positive. And then the final things I would say as a council member, where I look to improve things, is if we can remove code barriers or create other incentives like live workspaces that would help the arts community. So anywhere council can have a role to play in that, I'm all ears and excited to learn from you all. It was part of what I ran on as a candidate, is holding multiple public meetings a month, which I absolutely will be doing, public meetings both on IU's campus and in the city, to listen and learn and work on collaborative solutions together. I'm about out of time, so I'll say the final question: how can the arts community best support your efforts? And I wanted to say that I think the arts, at their very highest calling, help affect positive social change. They change minds, they change hearts, they're emotive and can move people in a way that words or facts or data can't. So whether it's drawing attention to youth or mass incarceration or housing injustices or climate injustices, I think all these are integrated with the arts. And that's how I see the arts community being able to help create a more just and equitable Bloomington for everyone. So I would just call on the arts community to help us in that mission. And that's my time, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next we have Ron Smith in District 3.
You did put me after Matt. That's a hard act to follow. Nice job, Matt. So I tried to address the questions that we received, and I looked at them and tried to think about how the city has supported the arts. City government should and does play a role in fostering the arts. It's a driver for tourism. It means business to the restaurants and shops around the square. According to the 2012 Americans for the Arts study, Bloomington's nonprofit arts sector contributes about $72 million to this area. And that is an incredible amount of money. And look at the wonderful things we have around here, partly because of the taxes and the fees that help support the city. And part of it is all due to y'all that are involved in arts. On another level, arts helps us as human beings feel human joy, sorrow, love, and pain. It transports us to another place, shows us empathy and wonder, and helps people feel happy here. And in general, Bloomington's a pretty gosh darn good place. The city of Bloomington promotes the arts. The city Bloomington Arts Commission last year awarded 17 local organizations with art project grants. Danielle mentioned that, Matt mentioned that. Grants to help stimulate and grow arts organizations such as Artisan Alley, Bloomington Songs, Bloomington Creative Glass, and many more that you all enjoy. City gives it a web presence, space on buildings, arts, the guitar. It helps support the Buzzard Chumley. It gives you space at the city building. And it helps to grow arts organizations by having a director of economic and sustainable development for the arts. It has a database for artists. It does a lot of really great things. And we live in a bubble here, kind of. Just go to the local towns and cities around, and you'll see that Bloomington, we're very fortunate to have a very supportive city for the arts here. The city of Bloomington supports the arts economically. You see that, it was great. Danielle gave me some information there. $700 and some thousand a year in total. I had no idea it was that much. City Council doubled some of the grant funding to $40,000. And if I am elected to District 3, there's no doubt I'm going to support the arts. I continuously come to Cardinal Stage. I go to the Buzzard Chumley. I go to Creative Glass. I do everything I can think of here because it's so enriching to do those things. The next part of the question was something about your specific role. If I'm elected, I would pretty much continue to support all these wonderful efforts. I'd like to focus some of my efforts on making sure the Buzzard Chumley has maintenance funds to replace some of the equipment, some of the electricity, some of the sound systems. And, you know, I did ask Danielle about this a few weeks ago because I was trying to do my homework to make sure I knew what I was talking about here, and that makes a lot of sense. Something that we all don't know. It's behind the scenes. We don't all know that. I also think that as a city council member, I would try to support public art. I think public art is fantastic. How about the fork and spoon at the city market? Those things enrich us. We see them and it makes us smile. I would be really happy to support more public art in Bloomington. And the last part of it is how the arts community can best support your efforts. I guess that's me. Well, I work for Area 10. So I work with older people who are sick, older people who don't have as much ability to walk around and move around. So the arts community, to me, to help with my mission in life, could help by reaching out to this community, making some events free for those who are income eligible, and I know you do anyway, advocating for city transportation to bring people to the Buzzkirk-Chumley, to bring people downtown when those events are going on. Let's be specific about it. Let's target that transportation. And the city can do it, and they're revamping the way that the transportation system is targeting. So let's do that. Oh, it's time. And the last one is making participation in the arts accessible for people who use wheelchairs. So, thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be with you tonight. I'm Sue Scambaluri. I'm seeking the opportunity to serve my neighbors on Bloomington's north side as City Council representative for District 2. Most of us have been on several panels this season, this campaign season, and you'll always see some common things. We always thank the people who are putting on the forum, and we always do our prep work and have our notes ahead of time. This was by far the most fun forum for me to prepare for. So I got to thinking about the thank you to Arts Forward for planning the forum. But I got to thinking about what else you all do, and I thought, thank you for making me laugh. Bloomington Playwrights Project, where are you? Thank you for beating a dead horse. When the door opened and Anya music played for the horse, I still laugh about that. Cardinal Stage, where are you? Cardinal friends, you have brought me to tears. You have brought us to tears. Bill W. and Dr. Bob haunts me to this day. Jewish Theater of Bloomington, any friends here for that? Thank you for being here. Halpern and Johnston reminded me to think about the people I miss. Who have gone before me. So thank you for that. Pictura Gallery, thank you, Martha and David, for indulging me and giving me a chance to indulge my love of animals with the exhibit from Tanzania. Jaw-dropping, jaw-dropping. The lion, love that one. Bloomington Glass Guild, you give me something to look forward to every single year with the pumpkin patch. And anything I can do to get a preview before the preview of the pumpkins, I would like to pursue that. If we can, please let's talk after. City Council's role. Certainly it's financial support, and you've already heard about a lot of the things. And Danielle, this is excellent. Thank you for this. My hope is the press picks this up, too, because I think this is fascinating. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to work on some projects related to that. Many of you know I'm a redevelopment commissioner for the city of Bloomington, and so as the Dimension Mill came together, we had a chance to think about public art and how that would enrich the environment, and that was truly a thrill. We also, some of our funding, and our TIF funding in particular, goes for the Buzzkirk-Chumley Theater and for new and improved features of that theater, which is just a crown jewel of downtown. So I think those opportunities for financial support are there. Certainly, I think city government's role also is to provide some guiding principles. I don't ever want to see us lose 1% for the arts, and maybe that'll be 2% and more. But I think building a community we treasure requires consistent effort. It can't be one program. It can't be one particular effort. So seeing that sustained over time, I think, is very important. The notion of growing and changing support for the arts, I think, is a really interesting discussion. Sean and I actually talked a little bit about the idea of an inventory of public art. And I think whatever City Council can do to invest in that and sustain that is important. Not because an inventory is an end in itself, but because I think that's a planning tool. And I think governing is all about deciding what to do with resources. And I think creating an environment is one thing, preserving it and enhancing it over time is another. So I think that's one tool that we need to support to ensure that we could do that going forward. I think, too, it would be interesting to look at how the arts function fits into economic and sustainable development in the city, and how well that works and how that can be improved and enhanced. I have a great deal of respect for that office. I know the individuals who work in it, and I've collaborated with all of them on one thing or another, but I think it's an opportunity to revisit it and make sure that every area is getting the attention it needs in that particular area. Those of you who know me well know that I'm a fundraiser for IU. I raise money for the university and the College of Arts and Sciences. I think it would be really interesting to pursue the creation of a really robust arts foundation, much a la the Parks Foundation, to give people an opportunity to express their philanthropic interests for this. I don't think it's so much about how we divide up the pie. I think it's growing the pie that needs to be part of the conversation as well. So I think an arts foundation can do that. Beyond that, how you can be of help to those of us on council, or at least to me, please continue to have a dialogue with us on economic impact. Gabe made a comment at the hearings on the 4th Street Garage and talked about how patrons had to circle and they had to delay curtain times because patrons had nowhere to park. And that was a very compelling statement at that particular hearing. When the arts community shows up, it's persuasive in those kind of settings. So please do that. Please help us think through economic and sustainable development and arts placed within that. So I think those are some opportunities we have to work together. You make Bloomington a place we all treasure, and I would be honored to work with you all on that. So thanks.
Well, I will do the honor of the same, thanking everyone, having my notes, and that formality. Fun fact: everyone always wants to learn something new every day. So, fun fact: 3 of us up here went to the same high school, wow. And I went there before they did. So, oh no, guys, I went before you. Don't worry. Yeah. So we. So I am a transplant here. I went to school here, and I left. So I went to SPIA, now O'Neill, and then I went back to get a postgraduate in SPIA up at IUPUI. While there, in nonprofit management with side concentration in philanthropic studies. So I understand the struggles of fundraising and of trying to get the necessary funds for the arts, because I worked for the Indiana Humanities. It used to be Indiana Humanities Council, now it's Indiana Humanities. And we worked closely with the Indiana Arts Commission, and I got a really rich experience of what that means in Indiana. And it's not easy. It's not easy, especially as schools focus on STEM, and we need to be focusing on STEAM instead, bringing the arts back in. How do we engage with each other? That's through the arts. It's through the humanities. Literally, it's in the name. We are humans. It's how we interact. It's how we communicate with each other. So, from my standpoint, yes, I also frequent our arts, but as a city government's role, especially a city council, it's their responsibility to fill the gaps. It's to enhance arts education. It's to provide the ability for individuals like yourselves to present your work. And in 2012, the National Endowment of the Arts reported that there was a 9-to-1 ratio of return on investment on money awarded to an arts organization to the contributions and earned revenue. So if you think about that, if the city is giving $773,928 in terms of for the arts, a 9-to-1 ratio is $6.97 million in additional contributions and earned revenue, which is fantastic, but that needs to be bigger. We are growing as a city. The city itself needs to understand that as well, and that needs to offset within. That needs to grow in terms of inflation of costs and enhancing our entertainment and arts district along the way. In my specific role, I was trying to do some research on this too, and I found the 2015 Public Art Master Plan that the city put forward. And while it identified 7 objectives and aspirations for public art, there was one main component: collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. And that was private, interdepartmental in the city, individual, so when I say private, I mean company and individual. So on city council, I would be that driving force for those collaborations. City council with departments in the cities, myself with as a city council member, and local contributors and corporations to enhance our arts. You know, I think to Sue's point, inventory of public art, that follows, it's a great idea, and that actually falls into the state of the arts report that's supposed to be an outcome of the master plan. I couldn't find one, not saying there isn't one, I couldn't find it. So maybe that is our next step. That's one of our next steps. But collaboration is going to be extremely important for us as a community to enhance our arts. And then finally, you know, how can the arts community best support your efforts? Well, for me, it's continue to do your thing. Why should we get in your way? We shouldn't. You all are the experts. You are the ones that have the creative minds. We're the ones that are supposed to uplift you. We're supposed to provide you a platform to be able to express yourselves. And like I said earlier, you know, the arts and humanities are tied. We communicate to each other through our expressions, through performance art, through things that can't talk, like what you find in here, just the artwork and sculptures. You know, we have world music concerts and educational opportunities, and we as a city need to do more for you. So, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Isabel Piedmont Smith. I serve on the City Council to represent District 5. And I'm also, I suppose, fortunate to not have an opponent in the November election, and there won't be an election in District 5, so you're stuck with me if that's where you live in Bloomington. I am a Bloomington native. I was born and raised here. My parents immigrated from Germany in the 1960s. And I have worked in the Department of French and Italian at Indiana University for 23 years. So very much in favor of the humanities, and I want to thank Sue for raising money for us. I consider myself very lucky that my parents valued the arts, and they instilled a love for the arts in me from an early age, even though I must admit to not wanting to practice the piano when I first started and being grouchy about that. But I learned piano, ballet, violin. I was in the bell choir at St. Charles. I was in the University Children's Choir under the incomparable leadership of Mary Getze. My parents dragged me to the opera, for which I developed a grudging appreciation. I went eagerly with them to the theater, even as an adult. I love the arts in Bloomington. I'm so grateful to all of you and to all the organizations you represent and all the individual artists for contributing to what makes Bloomington such a wonderful community. So first question, what should the city government's role and responsibility be in supporting the arts? So I think local government's role should be to coordinate, to encourage, and to financially support the arts. The city is in a good position to bring artists and arts organizations together for collaboration, as Nick said, projects, and also to offer training in management and fundraising skills. The city can and should welcome artists and arts organizations to participate in cultural events the city sponsors and to exhibit art in all city spaces. Finally, the city should, and it does, provide grant funds to support a wide variety of artists and art forms. In addition to the current grants program, the city should continue to provide spaces for art and to pay artists to produce that art. The city can also play an important role in marketing Bloomington's arts community and has done so through the Bloomington Entertainment and Arts District in collaboration with the Indiana Arts Council, Visit Bloomington, and other organizations. The city can provide venues for art, as I said, including those 1% for the art spaces that have already been mentioned. Space inside city buildings. We, last year, I think, unveiled some art in the City of Bloomington Utilities building for the first time. And also as part of the gateway entrances to Bloomington that were part of our bicentennial bonds that were issued last year. The $55,000 contribution to the Buskirk-Chumley Theater is, as mentioned, actually part of the City Council budget. So we're very pleased to support the BCT in that way. Question 2, in your specific role, where will you be focusing your efforts? Again, as others have said, I would not change a lot unless you all brought me concerns and said, hey, there's a better way to spend our time and money in the city and do things a little bit differently. I think we have great opportunities ahead of us with the expansion of the convention center to create spaces inside the center that are conducive to all kinds of arts expression, and also to provide areas for display both inside and outside the convention center for local artists. With the redevelopment of the hospital site, we also have another great opportunity to incorporate arts, and I feel strongly that there should be a community center as part of the redevelopment, which would have a component for senior programming and also a component for arts programming. And of course, those overlap, and they should overlap.
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, one more question in 1 minute. How can the arts community best support your efforts? Well, I came into local government due to my concerns about land use and its impact on the environment, not as a scientist, but as someone who has seen the green space in my hometown slowly disappear and be replaced by strip malls. Since the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change came out with its newest findings in October 2018, I've been particularly focused on how Bloomington can reduce its greenhouse gas emissions and get to net zero emissions by 2050. Comments I made about this fierce urgency during the city's budget hearings in August were misinterpreted as a suggestion to decrease funding for the arts. The comments I made were as to the relative existential importance of efforts towards addressing climate change vis-a-vis efforts to expand city art programs. I fully support our arts community and have no intention of reducing arts funding. What I learned through the conversations that followed the city budget hearings is that the arts can assist with getting the message out about climate change, and that the arts are particularly important in these current times of repeated environmental and some would say political disasters. The arts celebrate and uplift the human spirit, and we need them all the more in times when climate catastrophe threatens. So thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming this evening. Sorry, I'm not used to holding a microphone. I'm not a performer, as you will soon learn. I'd like to thank all of you for coming here this evening and for everyone watching at CATS for being engaged in our community in this way. I'd also like to thank Danielle and Arts Forward Bloomington for hosting what could very well be the only candidate forum of the 2019 general election. I think events like these are crucial for our democracy here locally and beyond. And I'd also like to thank the Walden Arts Center for hosting this event and for all the work that they and Arts Forward Bloomington do to support the arts and artists in our community. Unlike Matt, I'm not creatively inclined in any way, shape, or form, but I'm a patron of the arts. You will find me oftentimes at Cardinal Stage, specifically the performing arts. Cardinal Stage, the Buskirk-Chumley. Of course, I go to almost all the operas with my grandmother at the IU theaters. She loves them very much. She loves coming down here for those. We try to make it a treat every time she does. When one thinks of Bloomington, you think of all the familiar adjectives, quirky, weird, artsy. The arts community in Bloomington are literally inseparable. You cannot have one without the other. And the city's involvement in supporting, promoting, and appreciating the arts is key to maintain this part of our community identity. The arts, no matter the medium, are an important part of the human spirit and of development. Public funding for the arts serves three main purposes, in my view. Firstly, it provides art and public spaces that enhances the quality of life and ambience of those specific areas. Take, for example, the new mural in People's Park. That truly helped transform that space from something that hardly resembled a park to an area that is more welcoming, more community-oriented, and of course, more attractive. Such improvements help enhance traffic to these areas, instill a sense of pride in our community, and provide an economic benefit as well. People are more likely to spend more time and more money in areas that are more attractive, and public art plays a crucial role. Secondly, public art helps provide art to those who may be marginalized in our community. Art is a crucial part of any child's development, and in my view, is a critical part of the adult experience. Unlike some others, I have not grown up with art in my life in my early childhood. My family simply couldn't afford to do things like operas and art shows and museums. And I missed out on that part of my life, and that's why I think even now I have trouble drawing even a straight line, or have trouble even trying to play the most simple of instruments. Providing accessible opportunities to observe and appreciate art, whether it's a musical theater experience, a public sculpture, or a mural, helps support those of us who may be unable to afford to travel outside of our community for these things, or pay the cost of attending a performance or museum. And this is where public art fills the void. Thirdly, publicly funded art shows the art community that the community at large appreciates them and their craft. Not every person is made to work in an office, and we must show appreciation to the artists in our community, not just those who work in tech or in biomedical production. We focus so much on the trades district and other economic growth opportunities that we may sometimes forget the segment of our population that provides us with art, with our culture, and with our quirkiness. Public art is the method by which we invest in the arts community. These three key benefits, not to mention the countless others that I do not have the time to mention up here, have persuaded me to support public art funding by the city. Not only can we support the arts through direct financial support, but by making sure that the arts are continually welcome here in Bloomington. Part of this is making sure that various programs, art fairs, and performances have public stages to utilize programs, have public space to utilize their programs at little to no cost. Amphitheaters, performing stages, and plazas are important to connect the public to the arts community and the public to itself. If I'm so blessed to be elected to City Council, my focus on public art will extend to most, if not all, projects that come before the City Council. There's a lot of opportunity to work with private developers and landowners to establish more public art and more public space for art performances in Bloomington's future development projects. Part of this was called for in the Arts Master Plan of 2015. Additionally, I think it's important that we make sure that all neighborhoods in Bloomington benefit from the arts. I would like that an inventory be completed of all public art and public spaces within Bloomington to determine what investment in these areas is lacking. Where you are born in our community should not also dictate your access to art or our culture.
1 minute.
I would also like to work with the Bloomington Arts Commission to establish a yearly report to the City Council on the status of arts in Bloomington, part of which would be to update that inventory, update the Council on Bede, and propose to the Council future opportunities for artistic development in Bloomington. And, of course, my metaphorical door will always be open to those who wish to talk about these issues important to them, to their community, and to their livelihood. As we go through this election, the arts community can best support my efforts by doing stuff exactly like this. There's a lot that I and everyone else up here does not know. Educating myself and other candidates and public officials on issues important to you is a crucial part of our democracy. I'm always willing to listen and to learn more, and individuals like you and groups like Danielle and Arts for Bloomington are key to us all learning more to be better equipped to serve you all.
Time.
Again, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you.
Whose place am I taking tonight?
You're speaking as yourself, and then after you, Sally Gaskell will make a statement on behalf of Susan Sanford.
Okay. You're supposed to be up here, or I don't know.
She'll come in after you, Steve. It's okay.
Okay. I feel like the understudy tonight. So, my name is Steve Volan. I am the 6th district representative to the City Council. I've served since 2004. You are in the 6th district right now. It represents the centermost district of the city. It's the only district that doesn't touch one of the edges. So from about 17th Street to 1st, from about Rogers Street east to the western half of the campus. So there are a lot of students, for example, in my district. They don't know we exist. They don't know that the City Council votes on things every week that affects their daily lives. But that's a story for another night. We're here to talk about the arts. One of the questions that I didn't know was hanging out in the back of my head is why? Why are the arts so important to a community? It seems self-evident, but I just finished a degree in human geography, a master's degree at IU, and I just wrote a thesis about how cities and campuses work and why. And it occurs to me that, let me first introduce you to an idea of a sociologist named Ray Oldenburg. You've heard of the notion of the third place. Third places are not home and they're not work. They are, as he says, they host the regular, voluntary, informal, and happily anticipated gatherings of individuals beyond the realms of home or work. They aren't just the bar, the church hall, the coffee shop, the barber shop, the hair salon. They're also, I mean, these places are the heart of a community's social vitality. And the key thing that they do is they engender conversation. Well, so does the theater. So does the art gallery. So does the street fair. That's why the arts are so important to a community, because that's where civic life thrives, where there is conversation, where conversation is engendered. If there is a reason why I support the arts, it's because that is what makes a healthy city. That makes a city that I want to live in. That makes a city that all of us want to live in. It's no accident that Bloomington is the second most popular tourist destination in the state of Indiana after Indianapolis, because there is a lot happening here. But who operationalizes that? Is it just because we have a university here? No. I was at the beginning of the founding of WFHB. I've been a DJ on it since we went on the air. I was at the beginning of the founding of the Lotus Festival. I helped with the first year. I was on the board of directors for the first 6 years. I've been an MC every year, and I'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks out of the tent at 6th Street, introducing acts that will make you dance around. I have done these things because they are not just, good for the community, but they engender that conversation that I thrive on. So, of course, I am supportive of the arts. In fact, doing some math tonight, looking at the number that Danielle came up with, about $770,000. I'm not sure why it is that we aren't pursuing 1% for the arts across the entire city budget. In other words, it's one thing to get 1% out of a developer's project one time, but maybe we should bump that. The city budget now is more than $90 million. That should be bumped up to at least the 1% that would match. And if we count the utilities department, the budget's like $130 million. So there should be we should be up in the $1-point-something million range for funding of the arts. Quality of life is a form of economic development, if not one of the most important forms. One of the things that I think has been missing in Bloomington for a long time is a venue of a size, from a performing arts perspective, is a venue between the Buskirk Chumley and the IU Auditorium. We don't have a good 1,000, 1,500 seat venue here, which is why I'm supportive of a convention center, because an expanded one will give us room and the proper building design to actually host events that are not conventions, but they're actually theatrical, artistic, larger music events that we have pined for as a community, that we could absolutely support as a community. Of course, you all know that the most important issue in District 6, and probably the most important issue to all of you here who are concerned about the arts, is parking, right? Parking is actually a big deal. And one of the things that did not make it into last year's ordinance that changed a lot of rates in town was a goal that I had to set aside at least $20,000 a year to subsidize the parking of people who volunteer or people who are low income. And the only reason it didn't make it into the bill last year is that it was too complicated. We couldn't find somebody to administer the program. But it's the next goal I'd like to achieve. It probably will happen after the UDO. But if you don't think parking makes a difference, let me and all the other arts organizers here tell you about it afterwards.
Steve, that's time.
Is that time? Okay, and Kay, I want to ask you at some point about how the permits are going.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I had hoped to join fellow council members and candidates at this evening's important forum on the value of a strong arts community in Bloomington, but my duties on the Plan Commission in amending the current UDO prevent me from being here with you tonight. And so Susan sent me her statement, Danielle asked me to read it, and I'm here to do that for you. Much pride stands behind my long-standing and ongoing support for public funding for the arts. The city of Bloomington has a special cultural brand that has developed over decades of passionate residents who enjoy the artistic richness at Indiana University and the local attractions that make Bloomington an arts destination. The local talent in performing, visual, and literary arts continues to develop with the help of arts grants that the city offers through the Bloomington Arts Commission and our Economic and Sustainable Development staff, formerly Maya Michelson and now Sean Starowitz, devoted to public leadership in the arts. I have long been an advocate for these arts grants and lobbied to have them doubled during this past term. As a member of council, we take our appointments to the Bloomington Arts Commission very seriously, and we have the good fortune of interviewing an array of dedicated residents with diverse arts expertise to serve on this advisory body that drives so many good community projects and public works of art. As a member of council supporting Mayor Curzan and Maya Michelson in prior terms, the city initiated the BEAD, a mayor's step in codifying the arts brand that Bloomington proudly claims, establishing our community as a leader in the regional cultural arts district. In this current administration, led by Mayor Hamilton, we have new opportunities to develop public art and performance venues in our parks and along our trails, providing more community connectivity and gathering places. We struggled mightily and then reached success in finding a suitable steward to maintain the Waldron Arts Center as a downtown arts anchor and community gathering space, now managed by Ivy Tech. We want our beloved community radio station, WFHB, to keep its good home in our arts core in the Waldron. The Busker Chumley Theater, so admirably managed by Danielle McClelland and BCT Management, is a gem in the heart of the BEAD. The BCT building is a property of the City of Bloomington maintained by Parks and Recreation. As property managers, the city has an obligation to provide ongoing public support for this popular theater as a community gathering place and downtown arts asset. With public subsidies for operations that remain in the council's budget, I continue to support the City of Bloomington's commitment to maintain the building. As the programming of the theater is in the capable hands of BCT management, we should all want to ensure the health and safety of the BCT building to keep it going strong into the future. As this building ages and problems arise with leakage and other matters inherent with property management, we have an obligation to get out in front of these housekeeping matters before they become more expensive to repair. By offering public subsidy through building and operational support, this allows BCT management to devote more of its efforts in developing community programming that includes local talent as well as the more commercial artists that the theater books. In an environment of competing interests in the city's budget, we must never lose sight of the strengths that give Bloomington its reputation as a cultural and arts hub. In Bloomington, we don't view arts as a luxury item only reserved for the well-off, but as an inclusive opportunity to educate young minds, to stimulate deep thinking, and to share our community values through the thoughtful expressions of our talented and diverse artists. Artistic expression is not only a source of joy, but a mechanism for addressing community challenges and for bringing this amazing community together in the spirit of peace and respect for our shared humanity. A vibrant arts community also drives economic activity and provides local jobs. By maintaining our status as an arts destination, we bring many visitors to our downtown and university core. Visitors and resident patrons support local restaurants and retail when they attend festivals, performances, and our galleries and museums. As I heard it once said, we may hear from Bloomington residents who don't particularly care for the art form of opera, but it is clear that we all benefit from having a top-notch Jacobs School of Music at IU that produces world-class opera and sends so many professionals out to international stages. If world music isn't your cup of tea, we all benefit from the joy that the Lotus World Music and Arts Festival brings to our downtown each fall. Professional live theater, concerts, film production, dance, jazz, country, folk, rock, galleries, museums, poetry, spoken word, comedy. The fact that the City of Bloomington hosts a little bit of everything that any arts lover could possibly want is a testament to the brand that is worth maintaining through our own patronage and purchases and our public contributions to the visual, literary, and performing arts. Final paragraph. As long as I serve on the Bloomington City Council and beyond, I will remain an unwavering advocate for public funding for the arts in Bloomington. Much is said about the importance of maintaining a quality of life that includes good jobs with living wages, housing affordability, respect for our fragile environment and climate action, maintaining basic city services and infrastructure, and providing public safety. In Bloomington, I don't talk to many residents who don't value the quality of life that we can brag about here that includes our forward-thinking and intelligent arts community. Without our arts, we would lose our very character, and fortunately, we don't have to choose. We can have it all.
All right, so now it's your turn. If you haven't already,